Hey, viewers and viewers, my name is General Red Strategist, and welcome back to Say Being Hunted. This is episode 482, I think, isn't it? I always sort of lose track of the numbers. It's because the series has been going on for so long now, I can't even remember what number episode we're up to. But what I do remember, of course, is that, whoa, okay, I just got rubber banded then, don't know what that was. Must have still been sort of moving under my own momentum then when I released the W key. I just knocked into the thing and went flying. Yes, well, what was I saying? So what I do remember is, of course, that in the last episode I failed the hardcore alphabet challenge again, and I failed it in a pretty silly way. I got stuck on a building, which is kind of the worst way, really, to actually fail a challenge, because, you know, usually when I fail challenges I usually go out in a blaze of glory at least, usually because I get gunned down by the robots, so it's usually quite an exciting death, or an exciting way to fail. But of course, no, in that instance, it was probably the most mundane way to fail possible. I glitched out on a piece of the geometry or whatever, which is not really great now, is it? So, for this episode, we're just going to do a little podcast. That's all, podcast-style episode. A little bit of discussion, just to chill out, so we've got a little bit of filler to keep the series going in the meantime before I eventually decide what challenge to do next. So, the thing is, it's an afternoon as I'm going to record this, a late afternoon, I've done my sort of work for the day, and so now I'm chilling out, having a little bit of a recording session. I'm going to record a bit of Sir, going to record some RTCW, get some of that done, maybe some other stuff as well, maybe some bonus content, because I feel like, I don't know, recently of course I've been uploading various bits of bonus content on the channel, so, you know, as when I record this, I released recently an episode of The Saboteur, episode 6 with myself and Phil. So it was that. And, you know, The Saboteur, of course, is a game that I really want to come back to and do more of at some point. I always say that about a lot of the games, in fact, that I do on the channel. That's the problem. I have so much bonus content, so many different series that I want to do, that I need to really just be disciplined with myself. I need to pick one of them out. I need to just sit down, really blitz it. But that's just, you know, something there, just on that front. But, you know, something else that I've been doing recently is I don't know if I've actually talked about this before. I think I've talked about, you know, sometimes I watch TED Talks here on YouTube sometimes before, and I think I've talked about various ones that I've watched. But I've been watching another few recently in these last sort of couple of weeks, especially ones concerned with a very particular topic. And, you know, this might be a more sort of well, I was about to say more of a drier topic, but I don't know. It's still an interesting topic, so, you know, you guys watching may find this quite thought-provoking. But I was watching some TED lecture videos actually on the subject of AI, artificial intelligence. Because, of course, the thing is, coming from my own career in academia, where I'm in the sort of subject area of international relations and security, as you can imagine, AI is like a very, very topical subject at the moment. And, you know, it's not kind of difficult to think why. I mean, AI offers a lot of technological potential in terms of data collation and analysis, the ability to just crunch numbers incredibly quickly, along with fields like quantum computing and things like this. And so, as you can imagine, it's a technological area where there's a lot of, how should I say, kind of potential for geopolitical competition between, you know, world powers like the US, Russia, China, the like. And so I've been watching videos actually on AI recently, because it's just overall a very fascinating subject. And some of these videos that I was watching were just really sort of thought-provoking, because, you know, in popular sort of media, you know, in, for example, like Hollywood movies, things like that, AIs and robots are often depicted in a very particular way. Usually, whenever a sort of apocalyptic scenario is presented in Hollywood that involves robots and AIs, it's usually presented in the sense of AIs and robots being sort of hostile towards humanity, that kind of thing. So, I mean, that's just my own experience of it. So think of things like movie franchises like the Terminator, or the Terminator films, or The Matrix, things like that. But what's interesting about these TED lecture videos that I watched was, well, there was one of them. I'm trying to remember what the name of the guy was. I think it was Sam something. Is it Sam Harris? It might have been Sam Harris, but I'm not sure. Um, but he essentially gave like a 13, 14-minute lecture about the dangers of AI. And his was interesting actually to watch because he touched upon what I mentioned a moment ago about the idea of there being potential sort of geopolitical tensions over AI technology and who gets the monopoly on it and things like this. But also he touched on kind of that idea of Hollywood. Certain Hollywood media tends to depict the danger of robotics and AI being that machines will sort of become hostile towards humanity and will turn on us and things like this. But as he argued, actually, no, the danger isn't necessarily like that. The danger isn't necessarily that AIs and robots will become just sort of innately hostile to humans or will become malevolent or anything like that. And this kind of links in as well to another of these TED lectures on AI. I can't remember the name of the person who presented it, but I can sort of remember the title of the lecture. It was something like "The Danger of AI is Weirder Than You Might Think." And these two sort of lectures essentially highlight that the real danger with artificial intelligence is that it will be so obedient to us and it will work exactly as we intended it to. We'll give it a purpose and it will seek to fulfill that purpose. The problem is that because we are human, because its creators are human, and are therefore there's always that risk of human misjudgments, human errors, human biases, things like that. Because of that, there will be certain things when we're programming the AI that we don't think of, things like safety parameters, stuff like that. And as a result, when we task that AI to do things, to fulfill tasks, it will do them, but it will do them in ways that we don't expect. And that's where the danger lies, because it could end up trying to do tasks in a way that could actually potentially be harmful or dangerous. Not because the AI is malevolent towards humans, but just because it's trying to do what we've told it to do, but it doesn't understand certain things because we've not programmed it to understand them. Or we've forgotten to actually sort of make sure that it's programmed to do things a certain way. There was a great example in that lecture that I just mentioned. The danger of AI is weirder than you think. There was a great example of that. Well, not specifically an example of what I just said, but an example of an AI doing something, but not in the way we expected it to. Basically, the presenter, the lecturer in that talk, she talked about a sort of simulation, an experiment that a team of researchers had done, where they had given an AI kind of like a simulated set of robot parts and told it, you need to put these parts together in a way that will enable you to construct a robot that will be able to get from point A to point B. So that was the task they'd given this AI. And they gave it these sort of simulated robot parts and said, put together the robot so that it can travel from point A to point B. Now, the assumption was that the AI would basically take these parts and it would create basically a bipedal robot that would be able to walk from point A to point B. But according to this TED lecture, that's not actually what the AI did. What the AI actually did was to take all the robot parts, jam them together end to end to create one big tower, and then it sort of stood the tower on its end at point A, and then the tower sort of slowly keeled over until the other end of it had basically landed at point B. And that was how the AI fulfilled the task. So it fulfilled the task, like I say, just not in the way we expected it to. And so that, of course, is where the problem of AI potentially lies, in that, like I say, it will do things that we don't expect it to. And the other problem with it is, of course, that, as the other lecture by Sam Harris, I think his name was, also outlined, there is, of course, that danger that AIs, with electronic circuits that can function 1,000,000 times faster than biochemical circuits, like you find in the human brain, AIs will be able to explore the spectrum of intelligence at speeds and to degrees that humans would take normally thousands, if not millions of years to do. And that Sam Harris lecture was also fascinating because it sort of thought about what would the future look like if we develop an AI that can basically do not just all the menial jobs that normally will be fulfilled by humans, but if we could develop an AI that can also do intellectual work, perform things like scientific research, stuff like that, and given, like he says, that electronic circuits perform 1,000,000 times faster than human biochemical systems in our brain, then what does that mean for the future of not just menial labour, but also intellectual work? Because it's feasible that there would come a point where there's just no more need for the human in the labour market. And even sectors where we might have thought that there will still be a role for the human could well end up eventually being subsumed into the AI sphere. And it's fascinating to think, how would our society evolve as a result of that? So would we, for example, have to completely restructure our entire economy, knowing that very few humans are going to be living and working anymore? So in other words, we'd have to have things like universal basic incomes, things like that. I think I've probably talked about this a little bit before, haven't I, in relation to questions about automation. Now that I think about it, I wonder if I've covered this already, but who knows. Maybe I'm just repeating an old topic from a previous podcast-style episode, but yes. But the other sort of potential future that Sam Harris, as I think his name was, highlighted in the video, was the potential that if we don't sort of restructure our economies in order to put more and more wealth aside for helping out the masses of unemployed people who've been displaced by automation, by AI advancements taking over in pretty much every sector of employment, then the danger there is that we end up seeing a level of wealth inequality that is tremendously huge. So a lot of wealth might end up being concentrated in the hands of a very few people, whilst the rest of humanity still has kind of like a day-to-day struggle to actually exist on just meagre incomes, things like that, however they can do it, however they can scrape a living together. It's a sort of subject that I find fascinating as an academic in the field of international security, because these are the exact sort of questions that security analysts and scholars of international security studies, these are the kind of questions which we're all asking at this moment in time. And it's a series of issues which are being talked about, not just in academia, but also at the level of government, of industry. For example, if you go to the UK government web pages and you search, specifically for publications from the Ministry of Defence, you will find, for example, a publication like Global Strategic Trends, which is produced by a think tank here in the UK, a research organisation rather, called DCDC, the Development Concepts and Doctrine Centre. And GST it's a huge document. We're talking, probably a few hundred pages here, but it's fascinating because it basically lays out a whole series of trends, things that we're seeing in today's world. Not just, things related to AI and automation and robotics, but all kinds of things which have been sort of measured over time, and which are we deem to be long-term trends that will probably continue into the foreseeable future and will have an effect at an international level in terms of international relations, international security, foreign policy, defence policy, this kind of thing. And the thing is, Global Strategic Trends is currently in its 6th edition. Its 6th edition, I think, came out in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, and its first edition came out flipping well over a decade ago. And of course, with each publication, with each edition, the authors basically draw upon academic research, industry experience, military practitioners' experience, government viewpoints, things like this, to basically develop a picture of what the current sort of big trends are, both from a thematic point of view and from a geographical perspective as well, dividing by regions of the world. And they sort of look back as well on trends they identified in the previous documents, with a view to thinking, okay, how has this trend changed or evolved? Is it still ongoing, or actually has there been an alteration in it? Has it become more important, or has it become less important? And that's why GST is fascinating as a document, because if you want if you want a bit of heavy bedtime reading, let's put it that way, and you're fascinated by the subject of international security, and you want to, ask yourself, how do policymakers and academics and practitioners in that field, how do they see the future potentially unfolding? GST is a good place to start. Now, it shouldn't necessarily be taken as a kind of absolute prediction of what the future will be. Absolutely not. Nobody can predict the future with any certainty. That's the one thing that all academics will probably tell you. Nobody can know for certain what's going to happen in, 10 years' time, never mind 5 or whatever. I should put those numbers the other way around, actually. But essentially the point still stands. So, the thing is, GST, whilst it's not meant to be a kind of absolute prediction of the future, it's just meant to highlight, like I say, key trends and patterns going on today, which, at present, we have every reason to believe will continue into the future. So it's meant to be a handrail, basically, to thinking about international security, stuff like that. But it's a fascinating document. The thing is, you'll probably find similar documents from various governments all around the world, like future operating environment, things like this, which probably say, fairly similar things. But AI, of course, is just one of many factors that play into that and affect it. And the thing is, it's fascinating to think, how will AI and increases in robotics, advancements in automation, things like that, how will they intersect and interact with other factors, such as demographic changes across the world, urbanisation, more and more of the human population moving into cities, and especially cities in proximity to coastlines. How will AI and things like this intersect with obviously issues to do with the environment, with climate change, with environmental degradation, with resource scarcities? How will it all sort of come together into this kind of boiling cauldron of issues, and what will happen as a result? These are the kind of questions which policymakers, academics, military officers are kind of grappling with in this day and age. So I definitely recommend going and watching those TED videos. They're really fascinating, even if just for, providing a bit of food for thought. Let me sip some tea. My tea's getting a bit lukewarm, because I've been rabbiting on about AI and stuff like that, and not sipping from it more and more often. But, yeah, sorry, I know it's a bit of a dry topic probably for some of you, but it's just a topic that I personally find really, really interesting and exciting as an academic, because we're at kind of a point, I would say, in our history as a species, humanity, where we're seeing some very great changes, or we have the potential to see some very, very great changes. And of course, nobody really knows how any of this is going to unfold. The best we can do is try and make informed predictions and suggestions. And of course, there's a lot of potential for points of conflict. But I'd say there's also probably a lot of points for potential cooperation as well. As we sort of go through this world, we move into the future. So yes, I hope you found that interesting yourself, ladies and gentlemen, just to listen to me. It's one of those kind of topics which I've had it on the brain ever since I watched those TED videos, and I just really wanted to talk about it. Because sometimes when I get a topic like that in my brain, I think to myself, I really want to talk about it with someone. And you know what? So You Being Hunted podcast style episodes are great for doing that, because I can just talk into the microphone incessantly about whatever the hell interests me, and then upload it, and you guys can watch if you want, and all that. I mean, I'm not forcing you or anything, ladies and gentlemen, but I am forcing you, seriously. Don't look outside your window right now. If you haven't watched to this point in the video, well, we're going to be a little disappointed, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, if you don't watch to the end of the video, credits and all, well, not really credits, but outro, splash screen and all, and I'm going to have a few little stern words to say to you, ladies and gentlemen. A few stern words indeed. I swear to God, though, if I get that one person who now types in the comments, lol, clicking off video now at, timestamp, and then clicks off the video, you're just trolling me now, ladies and gentlemen, aren't you? You see, I'm sort of preemptively saying this as though I know it's going to happen, but actually I don't. The future is not written in stone. Who knows? Alright, well, tell you what, that'll probably do it for my little conversation there, so It's probably about 15 minutes-ish, at the very least, I would say, for this video. Knowing me, I've probably misjudged the timing entirely. It's probably more like 10 minutes, but who knows. So, hope you enjoyed that, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you found it interesting. Just as another little short podcast-style video. Go and watch those TED Talks. They're very, very interesting if you want to see them, ladies and gents. But other than that, I'll wrap up here. Facebook and Twitter links down below, along with a link to my propagandist channel for anyone interested. If you enjoyed, a like is always appreciated. But other than that, this is General Red signing off. Goodbye, all. So we went to go this way. Okay. Aha! What the fuck is this? What have we found here? This looks bizarre. Okay, hold on. Should have recognised. I was detonating that TNT. Oh no, there's another guy. I saw another guy. Wait, was he on a fucking skateboard? Oh, you son of a bitch, don't you do it. There's something down there. Oh, is that a gun? Is that a gun I can get? Please, oh no, it's Magnum clips. I don't want... Oh my god, he's got fucking Uzis! He's actually a dude on a fucking skateboard! Motherfucker, stop shooting my freaking corpse, why don't you? Flipping heck. Oh my god, so there's another dude we have to deal with now.